this. But something I would recommend is adding, like if you're talking about something specific in your show notes, add a section that talks about where, at what minute and second you can find that information. So that's really helpful. But even more so than that, that information can help you get indexed faster, and it can really help people find your podcast when they weren't looking for a podcast. So we talked earlier about how podcasts are there. It's sad how podcasts have kind of been buried as a content source, right? So you can find anything else on Google, and you couldn't find podcasts until last year.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah, that's again, that's where I look at where things are headed. I feel like what I'm doing and what a lot of people are doing, that stigma is going to start to fade away. So it's better to be on the front end of this curve and get your content set up to be found. So you can be more relevant.
Exactly. And the best thing you can do to do that is to set up a website, because then people who are looking for an answer to something that aren't necessarily looking for a podcast can still find your content. And if they don't have time to listen to the episode, they can still read it. And then they've become familiar with you. They know who you are, and they might even go download your podcast, or they might come back for other content. So that's really important. And something I said earlier was that these are extras. These are things to do if you have additional time to commit to this, because the podcast itself is a huge time commitment.
Yeah.
And so creating a whole website around this stuff can be even more time consuming. And so what you would want to include in a website, like, oh, what do I add on my website that makes this any different than what's on the platform, right? So the first thing you can do is add an about section. And I know that you can do that for on the specific platforms that you're publishing to, but if you have a website, you can write whatever you want, and it can be as long as you want, and you can add links to other things. You can link to other episodes. That sort of thing makes it really easy for people and search engines to find more of your content. So I would add a page for each episode. And I know that people have different theories on this. I say a page for each episode just because you can add as much content as you want to add about that episode. It can become a full show notes thing and a key takeaways and a transcript below. But I would always recommend at least like a summary of key takeaways and a transcript.
I'd like you to grade me and what I've been doing with my show. So the way that I set up, because I'm doing a daily release Monday through Friday, I've got 5 short episodes coming out. Instead of doing 5 separate pages for each, what I've done is every Friday, I've built a blog post that has all 5 of the episodes with a recap of here's what happened this week on the show.
Sure.
On top of that, what I'm starting to do is take the transcripts and build it into a blog post that's going to be completely separate and go out at a separate time. But within that blog post, it's also going to contain an embedding of the actual podcast, and then it will also contain the supplement video that I'm making for YouTube. So this content, again, I'm very big on the repurposing aspect, and I'm trying to find as many ways that I can get this podcast out onto the internet. So this is pretty fresh. And as we sit and record this interview today, Megan, I'm still recording and producing the video aspect. So if anybody were to go to the page, they may not see it just yet, depending on when they're finding this podcast. With what I'm doing, do you feel like I'm on the right track?
I think you're doing a great job. So
you're not just saying that.
No, I wouldn't just say that. I would tell you if I didn't think so. What you said about you have like a week of episodes in one post right now. I think that's fine to get you started. Like you said, you are adding content to that, or not specifically to that, but you're adding a blog post. So I would recommend linking from that post to your new blog post. And you said you're sending it out. So are you emailing this? Is this an email list?
Not yet. No, that's actually, I'm working on developing that aspect of it too. Cause as this is episode 30 and I'm usually when I think of past podcasts, like 30 episodes, while I'm really deep into this, I'm like a month in, because it's the first time I've done a fully committed daily podcast. So there's still a lot and I did this deliberately. I wanted to get the podcast out there first, and then after the first month, start trickling in the information in other ways. So it wasn't all just this bombardment of info onto everybody, and no one knows where to turn.